City have beaten the champions Liverpool 3-0 in a pretty comprehensive and deserved victory. In this video, I'm going to be exploring the fantastic work and performance of Jeremy Doku, how City's build-up structure and overloading the centre once again has dismantled a side that comes to the Etihad. But how did City exploit Liverpool even when they didn't have the ball? I'm going to be addressing all of those questions and want to start actually with how were City off ball in the game, because we know that City are able to overload the centre as they did against Bournemouth, and it's the exact same shape that we saw against Liverpool. I explored that in a bit more detail in the Bournemouth analysis video, so feel free to go give that video a watch because it's essentially a carbon copy of how good City were on the ball today, and I will touch on that also, but I did want to focus, I think, on the off-ball for City. So what City have primarily been doing this season is a 4-3-3 or a 4-1-4-1. Something like that. That's how City have usually been playing this season. What was interesting, though, and I don't know if City have ever done this before, or if they have, it's not something I can remember from like the past, 3, 4, 5 years or so. Foden's positioning was incredibly high. When I first saw him do that, I thought, oh, are we going back to a 4-4-2? But it wasn't quite that, because Doku was really narrow, and Cherki was really narrow. And it led to this situation where City's off-ball shape was incredibly narrow. So we can have conversations about the on-ball shape also being narrow, which is absolutely correct. But for the starting point of this video, I actually want to talk about the impact of why City set up like this. I don't know what shape you'd call this. Like a 4-1-3-2 or perhaps a 4-4-2, but with a really narrow diamond, perhaps, because Bernardo was at the tip, Nico at the base. Maybe that's the best way to describe it. I'm not sure. But regardless, why did City do that? Because it's a change in convention for what they've been doing for all season. If you set up really narrow off ball, then you are not inviting any avenues for central progression. You are allowing your opponent to have it in the wide areas. That makes sense because, generally speaking, teams are far more dangerous out wide than they are centrally. But it wasn't just that. There was far more to it than simply City wanted to make it so that Liverpool couldn't advance centrally and went down the flanks. They wanted them to advance down a very specific flank, and that was their right side. Just spoilers, there's going to be a lot of Canate disses in this video. I don't know if that's the correct term, but City clearly identified Canate as a build-up weakness for Liverpool, and he was continually exploited throughout the entire game. Haaland was always close to Van Dijk, ensuring that they could not build up through Van Dijk, the superior on-ball defender. Notice how advanced Foden is. Haaland is sticking close to Van Dijk. In a past game, perhaps Haaland rushes out to the goalkeeper to try to force a punt. Not here. Haaland is more eager on not allowing Van Dijk to have the ball. They don't want Liverpool to advance down their left. As soon as Canate gets it, Foden engages. So he knows that's going out to Canate. Foden's job as, I suppose, this left striker out of possession was to close Canate. So that means that you're going to have one of two things, because City have locked out the left side. It means that Canate's either going to punt it up, or he's going to play it to Bradley to punt it up, because not enough bodies were committed backwards for Liverpool to build out successfully from City's press. Here, Canate goes to Bradley, but as soon as Bradley goes on it, Doku is close to him. And as soon as Bradley goes to Salah, Nico O'Reilly's on close to Salah, and City win it back. That was a repeatable action throughout the entirety of that first half in particular. It's a carbon copy here. City win it back immediately with the same method. Liverpool were far too happy to launch it quickly far too often. So Foden engages onto Canate. Canate launches it, and eventually City just win it back. Once again, City were fantastic in their second balls and their loose balls, but Liverpool made it very easy for City. Haaland bending his run to deny access to Van Dijk for the goalkeeper. It forces the goalkeeper to go to the right side, and it falls to Canate, and Foden straight onto Canate, and then he punts it out, and City get the ball back. Just funny, visually, to see Cherki and Doku essentially. It really here for this, just for this moment, it looks more like a 4-3-3 of Doku and Cherki in central midfield. It was just fascinating to see the problem solving from Guardiola in this match, but it's the exact same as before. City so desperate to force Liverpool out to the left. Canate does not know what to do. He wants to go backwards. Now, there is a potential weakness in that, in theory, Because given how narrow Shirky is, there is a world where Konate could ping it out to Robertson, and then Robertson is on his way. And it's maybe not as simple as Nunes pushes up onto Robertson because Nunes is dealing with Wirtz at this point. But Konate is not Trent. So City are fine for Konate to just mess around on the ball, and they do not believe that he's going to do that. So City are technically leaving Robertson free. Shirky's preventing a more central passing lane. Van Dijk's even saying to Konate, can you maybe go out there because Robertson's free? But Konate's not able to do that, or he doesn't feel confident enough to do it. Eventually it comes back to the right back area. Foden closes. Konate clears it. I was at the Etihad, so I didn't see this at the time, but this really made me laugh. This is intentional by City, and it sounds like I'm being really mean to Konate, but it's so evident that it's not a coincidence that Konate happened to have the most touches in the match at around the 20-minute mark. That was a point that City made. City, for the most part, were in a 4-1-4-1 mid-block, so here we can see it's there. But as soon as it goes to Liverpool's defence, what does Foden do? He gets back into his more advanced position. He wants to close down Konate to force him to either launch it himself or play it to Bradley, who will punt it, and then City will win it back immediately. 34 minutes, 34-0-0 there. This is when City are 1-0 up. This just made me laugh that City let Konate have the ball for 14 seconds. They're 1-0 up at this point, so they don't even have to win the ball back necessarily. But that's how little they respect Konate's on-ball abilities, essentially. Massive weakness for them, and the plan worked brilliantly. It didn't help that Liverpool didn't have a proper left-sided outlet because Wirtz played at left wing, but then he was sometimes popping up in right attacking midfield. But nevertheless, Liverpool had barely any attacks down their left side. They had barely any build-up opportunities down their left side, and they created essentially nothing down their left side. That was City's fantastic work off ball, and it's been a big weakness for City this season. And Liverpool weren't particularly good, but I do think that some light should be shed on how good City were off ball because of this very, very specific shape that they opted for to force Liverpool through Konate, through Bradley, and O'Reilly picking up Salah meant that they were simply not able to get any joy at all throughout the game. City weren't just good off ball, they were also very solid on ball as well. A lot of this was also informed by Liverpool being very poor off ball. I expected a lot more from Liverpool. The intensity and their pressing just was not there. As I outlined earlier, where City go into their in-possession shape and the wingers tuck in, this creates a problem for the opposition because McAllister and Gravenberch are going to get outnumbered if Foden pushes up by Shirky, Foden, Doku. If they push up to try to take on our build-up structure, then they're going to get outnumbered as well by Bernardo, Nico and Foden. Even when Szoboszlai tries to join in as well, one of Shirky or Doku or even Nunes would also drop. So City were always getting the numerical edge on Liverpool. Not just in the centre, also out wide. 1, 2, 3, 4 City players, 3 Liverpool players. Not enough bodies, also not enough desire/intensity to close City down. Bernardo is a fantastic player in those smaller spaces, and he's very press resistant. Robertson is also really aggressively pushed up. We'll get into the relationship between Liverpool's fullbacks and City's wide players in a moment, but for now, just pay attention to how many players have been dragged over, City and Liverpool congesting this area of the pitch. So that means, given how many red shirts are here, there can't be that many players at the back for Liverpool. And indeed, there aren't. There is Van Dijk, there's Konate, there's Bradley. Konate's dropped really far. Van Dijk's trying to pick up Haaland, Doku with Bradley. So it's essentially a 2v2 because of Konate's really deep positioning. Haaland wins it. Again, Konate's not even on picture. He's more like in the centre circle. Haaland gets in front of Van Dijk, lays it off to Doku, and City are away. That didn't lead to anything, but it's how repeatable the action was. Another very similar situation for City. City have more numbers out on their right side. Liverpool are so half-arsed in their press here. How high up Robertson is. Bernardo again into Nico. Look at the distances here between Nico and Szoboszlai. I don't think this is acceptable. This is far too easy for City. Bernardo into Nico. Nico under little to no pressure. Nico into Foden. Foden turns. He's away. Plays it to Doku. And Foden should do better here with a touch because this is a ridiculous ball from Doku. We'll get into how brilliant Doku was on an individual level later. This is a bit better here from Liverpool. They actually have, a good amount of bodies here now, but they still aren't learning their lesson because they aren't really engaging with the required intensity, especially for a player like Núñez, who has had difficulties with how clean his first touch can be and dribbling out of these tight areas. He is liable to make an error. You'd think that would be something Liverpool would target, but they just didn't. They did not learn their lesson. Nowhere near intense enough. The weaknesses ultimately still exist. Just because you got the bodies forward, that isn't necessarily enough. City just switch it again. Carbon copy. Bernardo, Haaland, Foden, Doku are away. Foden out to Doku. This leads to a decent effort for Doku. This is the first goal. And this links to the build-up from City and the lack of intensity from Liverpool. So Nico O'Reilly is in a bit of a sticky situation here because Salah, very dangerous player, is forcing him into a corner. Look at Foden's positioning also. Now O'Reilly does fantastically well to hold him off for as long as he can, but he needs help. And Foden is exactly that. He drops deep. So Foden here, with just a couple of moves, takes out 3 players from Liverpool's press. Salah, Bradley, and then Ekitike with a gorgeous little dummy. A cheat code in the build-up, I would argue. Phil Foden is. This is gorgeous from Foden, O'Reilly, Nico, Cherki, Doku. It's wonderful, of course it is. But Nico here is essentially just having a little stroll in the centre of the pitch. If I were a Liverpool fan, I'd be disgusted at the lack of anything here from their midfielders. Nico just should not be able to saunter through here and play a nice little 1-2 here. McAllister's too late. Lovely from Cherki, little 1-2. Nico hits a switch out to Núñez. Because City's wide players are so narrow, this forces their fullbacks to engage and become narrow themselves. What does that do? Well, if Robertson and Bradley are tighter than they might want to be, so if we just push everyone up just for a moment so we can see what that may look like. If they're tighter, because they are concerned with Doku and they're concerned with Cherki, look at what that is doing for the fullbacks. City created so many opportunities like that against Bournemouth. They also did it a couple of times against Liverpool also. This is one of those instances. Look at how narrow Robertson is, because his man technically is Cherki. Núñez, all the space to run into. Great switch by Nico. So much grass to run into. On Robertson, it's not his fault that he started from a really narrow position because that's by design of City setup. My question is, why isn't Robertson going to engage with Núñez? He actually barks at Van Dijk and says, you go deal with him. So you end up in a situation where Robertson's left centre-back and Van Dijk is left-back. Really weird. And that's at 27:50. City, have the ball. It's very lovely for a fair bit of time. 25 seconds. It's still Van Dijk out at left-back. Bit of a miscommunication there between Van Dijk and Robertson. Eventually they swap over. And there's enough time for Robertson to get to Núñez here and close him down. Lack of urgency from so many Liverpool players. Núñez, far too much space. Hits a dummy, creates even more space for himself. And poor Konate, there's a bit of good fortune in the goal for City, but you can't deny that City absolutely deserved to win this game and deserved their goals. Second goal, lack of urgency, lack of intensity, lack of pressure. I do not believe that Nico and Foden, I know it's a corner, I do not believe that Nico and Foden should have this much time and space on the edge of the box. This is too easy for City. They haven't really done anything to get into this area. Liverpool are just not engaging enough. And yeah, it does take a fortunate deflection off Van Dijk. But if Nico was closed down a little bit better, would it have even reached Van Dijk to get deflected off him? Almost definitely not. Liverpool's pressing was poor. Second half, it got a lot better, okay, but you were 2-0 down at that point. 16.6 passes allowed in the first half, only 6 in the second. Where was that in the first half? City, on the other hand, fantastic. Duel winning as well. This is a ridiculous stat, particularly when you consider Liverpool's midfield when they have players like McAllister, Gravenberch, Szoboszlai. Lots of people were saying how our midfield was very lightweight and was going to get bullied. And yet they got dominated in the duels, the second balls, the loose balls, the recoveries. It wasn't good enough. Let's take a look at Liverpool's duels for their midfield players. Gravenberch, defensive duels won 25%. McAllister, 25%. Szoboszlai, 29%. Aerial duels won. Gravenberch, 0. McAllister, 0. Szoboszlai, 1. That's fair enough. Loose ball duels won. Gravenberch didn't engage in any. Szoboszlai didn't engage in any. McAllister engaged in 2 and lost both of them. City were just so much better than Liverpool in so many facets of the game. And it goes to show that you don't need to have necessarily this overly physical midfield, so long as your technical abilities are there. Because City were just playing around and through the Liverpool press over and over and over again. And this little like Rondo moment has been going around on Twitter, and rightly so, because this is just embarrassing. They're just like, it is like a training exercise. It's Nico, it's Foden, it's Bernardo, it's all these lovely, intricate first touch, small space players, able to do that, press resistant. They're just having fun. Let's now touch on the man of the match, Jeremy Doku. I apologise for this video being a little bit late, by the way. I recorded this video in full and I had my other mic on in the background, so there was this horrible reverb and just wasn't usable audio, so I've had to re-record it. So take two. Jeremy Doku was ridiculous, imperious, fantastic, sensational in the match. I think it's his best match in any football shirt, whether for club or country. It was insane. Contributed defensively, was a menace as an outlet. He was outletting Salah, which is saying something. Bradley didn't know what was going on. Konate didn't know what was going on. Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, they could not handle him. He was so good, and it was mesmeric to watch. Even without the goal, this was a wonderful masterclass by Doku. As Cherki dragged Núñez earlier to create the space for that first goal, Doku is dragging Bradley here to ask him a question. Bradley is getting sucked into Doku because he knows that that's technically his man, that's who he should be picking up. Eventually, he realises that O'Reilly's making the run on him, so he passes him off to Gravenberch. By the time he does that, it's a little bit too late, and O'Reilly gets into a really decent position here. Konate, poor guy, it's a hopeless clearance. Doku, is this even like a tactical thing, though? Is this not just like awareness and desire? Like, why is Doku getting in there ahead of Gravenberch? That's not good enough. And obviously from here, Doku's 2v1, so he ends up losing the ball. Haha! Idiot! No, he doesn't. Got ya. He actually gets through both of them because he's Jeremy Doku and he can do what he wants. Sadly, he then loses the ball. But that's ridiculous that he's able to actually get through both Bradley and Szoboszlai here. A 2v1 and Doku ends up winning it. It is ridiculous. Here's the penalty incident. The one moment, arguably, where I felt Bradley did get the better of Doku because Doku perhaps overestimated his own pace, maybe underestimated Bradley's. Bradley does well here. It's this guy again at the scene of the crime. It's Konate. Bradley does so well. Konate just like makes a pig's ear of it and hits it straight at Doku. It's no coincidence that Doku keeps bundling his way through challenges, players, Bradley's on the floor here, and ends up with the ball. Because he's strong, he's resilient, and he's just always aware of the ball in front of him. He wins a penalty here, and that is lovely. He actually should pass it to Haaland here, who then will have a tap-in. He wins the penalty, though, and that's the next best thing, but he should have passed it there to Haaland. Just a slight little gripe there. This was from Konate giving the ball away. Nico wins it back. And in the past, perhaps Doku would have held onto the ball a little bit too long. Maybe here he would have tried to run at Gravenberch and McAllister and then lost the ball. Instead, no, plays a gorgeous ball into Bernardo. Sadly, it does take a bit of a deflection. It wrong foots Bernardo and he falls over. But Doku's decision-making this season has no doubt gone up a level. This is City winning it back from one of those earlier examples. Foden spreading it out to Doku here. Gravenberch, Bradley, they are terrified. That means there must be space for someone else if there's a 2v1. Indeed, there is. You got Foden here. You got Cherki here. Cherki arguably could have done better with that chance that Doku has created for him. This is stupid. This is stupid. How many players in the world, within 1 second, can go from here to here, do you reckon? I reckon maybe 3, if we're being generous. I do think Doku is the best dribbler in Europe. I do seriously believe that. So he beats both of them. It's ridiculous. And this is saved by the goalkeeper. It's too central, but it's foreshadowing because just 7 minutes later, similar-ish vibe. City have overloaded the right, as in the first half in those earlier examples. Doku, central. Bradley, sucked in. As before. What does that mean? Say it with me, guys. That means there's space for the fullbacks. Brilliant switch by Nico. Loads of space for O'Reilly to run into. And this, look who it is again. No, it's not. I don't think it's actually Konate's fault. This is ridiculous from Doku. This is very Robben-esque, and this is why you ideally do play Doku at left wing, start him at left wing, and of course allow him to drift into the centre. Because if you're playing right wing, he's not going to be able to do that beautiful shimmy he does onto the right side where he beats the player. But this is very Robben, because Konate may well know that he's going that way. Perhaps he doesn't. But in the same way that lots of defenders knew what Robben was going to do, cut inside, hit it with his left, just because you knew what he was going to do, just because you were able to predict it successfully, does not mean that you were able to stop it. And it's the same vibe here. Konate may have well known exactly what Doku was going to do, but you still cannot stop him because he is that good as a dribbler. The goal is wonderful. I actually think that Doku is a good shooter. I don't agree that Doku's a bad finisher. His ball striking is actually impressive. He needs to shoot more, if anything, because he's got a really good shot on him. And this was a perfect performance from him, capped off with a great goal, and the performance would have already been wonderful without the goal, but he absolutely deserved it. City absolutely deserved the win. Liverpool were nowhere near up to it, nowhere near intense enough, and perhaps that is because they are tired. I'm not sure, but either way, the energy levels were just not there, and they have played tricky games against Aston Villa, and they played tricky games against Real Madrid also. And they were better in the second half. That's why Pep took off Cherki and brought on Savio to match that intensity. But at the end of the day, it just was not good enough. Look at that arrow that's annoying me. Why is that there? They just were not good enough, ultimately, and City absolutely deserved the victory. Great performance from City on ball. Great performance from City off ball as well. And we know that that's been a little bit of a weakness for City this season. Is this something that we are going to see again with this technically 4-4-2 vibe with the diamond, or was it just specifically for Liverpool? It's great to know it is another tool in City's war chest. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like on the video because I've now spoken for an hour trying to record this video due to all the audio issues, so please leave a like on the video. If you want to go the extra mile, you can join the channel. You can become a supporter on Patreon. Patreon, by the way, is where all of my videos go ad-free as well. And shout out to all of my gorgeous supporters across both of those platforms: Tony, Spartacus, Silver Splits the Blue, Ethan Larios, Austin King, and Rowan.